First story. My delusional stepdaughter sulked after I didn't buy her a Christmas present. So I told her to ask her real mom, and said she was also not invited on my family vacation, so she wouldn't sulk on the trip day. My entitled husband took his daughter's side, so I replaced him with my friend. I demanded that my husband move on and act normal. Now he has abandoned me and my daughters. So, I 32F have been married to my husband 35M for about 4 years now. We started dating when his daughter, now 14, was around 9. I've always struggled to bond with her. It's not like she's a bad kid, she's quiet, polite, and keeps to herself. But I've never felt that maternal pull towards her like I do with my own 2 daughters, 10 and 8. And yes, I know that sounds cold, but I'm not going to fake it either. Some background that I think is relevant. I'm the primary earner in our household. I have a successful career in marketing, and I work damn hard to give my girls a comfortable life. My husband works too, but his income isn't anywhere near mine. When it comes to bills, vacations, and extracurriculars, it's mostly coming out of my pocket. So yeah, when I spend money, especially on gifts, I'm focused on my kids. His daughter has her own mom. I didn't sign up to financially carry someone else's kid. What complicates things further is that I can't stand his ex. No dramatic reason like cheating or betrayal, I just don't like her. Something about her attitude has always rubbed me the wrong way. She acts like she's still tethered to my husband emotionally. She's passive-aggressive and over-involved, and even though they co-parent, it often feels like she's trying to mark her territory. So no, I don't feel any obligation to make life easier for her or go out of my way to parent her child. Over the past few years, my husband has tried to nudge me towards treating his daughter like one of my own. He uses words like fair and equal treatment, but I don't think that's realistic. I didn't give birth to her, I didn't raise her from infancy, and I don't have that emotional connection. I'm cordial. I include her in things when it makes sense, but I'm not going to pretend she's one of my daughters. Now let's get to the situation that's blowing up in my house right now. Last Christmas, we had a small family celebration, me, my husband, my daughters, and his daughter. We have a tradition where we buy gifts separately, so we can surprise each other, and honestly, I love that part. I go all out for my girls. This year, I got them new iPads, Apple Pencils, and some cute clothing they'd been asking for. For my stepdaughter, I got her a Bath & Body Works gift set. It wasn't cheap, and it smelled great. She's not really expressive about what she wants, and she gives off this vibe like she's just waiting to go back to her mom's house. So I didn't feel like I needed to go overboard. When we opened presents, it was obvious she noticed the difference. My daughters were thrilled, jumping up and down, hugging me, and asking me to help set up their iPads. My stepdaughter opened her gift quietly, mumbled a thank you, and just kind of sat there. I saw her face drop, and yes, I noticed, but I also didn't think it was a huge deal. She's not my kid. I got her something nice. Done. My husband, though, didn't take it lightly. After the gifts were opened, he pulled me aside, looking pissed. I could tell something was coming, and part of me was already annoyed because I knew he was about to turn this into that whole blending the family thing again. He told me I could have been more considerate, and that what I did made his daughter feel like she wasn't really part of the family. He said it didn't matter that she has another mom, that in this house, she should feel equal to my daughters. I told him I thought that was an unrealistic expectation. I said I didn't ignore her, I didn't exclude her from Christmas, and I didn't give her nothing. I got her a gift that I felt was appropriate. He kept pushing, saying the difference was obvious, and that she's old enough to understand what it means when 2 kids get expensive electronics, and she gets a body care set. That's when I said something that probably crossed the line, but I was already irritated. I told him that if she wanted more or better gifts, her biological mother could have stepped up and bought them. I said I wasn't responsible for compensating for whatever her mom does or doesn't do. His face dropped when I said that, and he told me that was cruel and unnecessary. At that point, the argument shifted from the gifts to a much bigger issue we've been dancing around for years. He asked me straight up if I even saw his daughter as one of my kids. I didn't sugarcoat it. I told him no, I don't. I said I care about her in the sense that she's a child living in my home part-time, but she is not my daughter and never will be. I said forcing that label on me doesn't make it real and only creates resentment. Unfortunately, his daughter was sitting in the living room, and while we weren't yelling, the house is small. I'm sure she heard at least part of it. I didn't stop myself, though, because I was tired of pretending this conversation didn't need to happen. That's when I brought up the vacation. Earlier this year, I had planned a trip for me and my daughters. I hadn't announced it yet because I was still finalizing details, but the timing came up during the argument. I told my husband that I had already booked a vacation for the spring flights, hotel, everything for us and my 2 girls. He looked confused at first and asked what he was supposed to do about his daughter. I told him she wasn't included. I told him I wasn't going to take her, and I wasn't changing the plan. I also said I didn't want any false expectations being set, because I wasn't interested in dealing with another emotional meltdown or guilt trip later on. He asked why I wouldn't even consider bringing her. I told him the truth, because I planned the trip for my kids. I paid for it myself, and I wanted a vacation where I could relax without navigating awkward dynamics or pretending we're something we're not. He got angry and said I was deliberately excluding his daughter. I told him that if he wanted her to come, then either he or her mother could pay for her share flight, hotel, food, everything. I wasn't covering it. I also said that even if they did pay, I wasn't promising I'd change my mind, because money wasn't the only issue. At that point, he accused me of being heartless. He said I was punishing his daughter for issues I have with his ex. I didn't deny that I dislike his ex, but I told him that didn't change the facts. His daughter has 2 parents already. I'm not one of them, and I don't want to be forced into that role. The conversation escalated fast. He said marriages are about blending families and compromise. I said compromise doesn't mean pretending everyone feels the same way when they don't. I told him I've been honest from the beginning about my boundaries, and he chose to marry me knowing that. After that, things got quiet. His daughter stayed in her room for the rest of the night. He barely spoke to me. The next day, he told me his ex had called him because their daughter was upset and didn't want to come over anymore. He blamed me for that. I don't see it that way. I didn't lie. I didn't insult her directly. I didn't take anything away from her. I just refused to treat her like my biological child when she isn't one. I think my husband wants a version of reality where everyone feels equally loved. But I don't think that's something you can demand. Now he's saying we need counseling, and that my attitude is damaging his daughter. I think he's being emotional and unrealistic and trying to make me responsible for feelings I didn't create. So Ada for how I handled the gifts, the argument, and being honest about the vacation, and where I stand with his daughter. Comments. Comment 1. I was that kid. You know, the one who sat there and watched the real kids unwrap the expensive SHT, while I got the $30 throwaway gift. That SHT sticks. I'm 29 now, and I still remember the smell of the body spray I got while my stepbrother got a Nintendo DS. What you did wasn't neutral, OP. It was a statement. And now she's 14 prime age for internalizing that kind of rejection. She probably already feels like a guest in her dad's home, and now you've made it clear that she's just barely tolerated. I don't care how much money you make or how much you hate her mom. That girl didn't choose this situation. And when you aired all that stuff knowing she could hear you, you guaranteed she won't forget that moment. YTA. And not just for the gifts. For turning your resentment into punishment. Comment 2. You're gross. YTA. If you didn't want to be responsible for any level of care or love towards your husband's kid, then what the hell were you doing marrying him? Did you think you could pick and choose parts of his life like ordering a la carte? When you marry someone with a child, you marry into that child's world too. She didn't ask for any of this. She didn't choose to split her life between homes. And now she has to sit there and watch her father's wife play favorite, while pretending she's doing nothing wrong. You say you're rational. But this isn't rational, it's calculated. You weaponized favoritism to send a message. Not just to the kid, but to your husband. And let's not pretend that dropping the vacation news in front of her wasn't on purpose. You've got serious issues with control and ego. You shouldn't be around someone else's kid until you fix that. 100% YTA. And I hope your husband realizes what kind of environment you're creating for his daughter. Comment 3. Damn, that's cold. My sister and her husband have a blended family. 3 kids, 2 from her, 1 from him. You know what they do for birthdays and holidays? Same budget, same energy, no exceptions. It doesn't matter whose DNA is involved. They're a team, and those kids are equals in the house. That's what building a blended family looks like. We hosted an exchange student once. She was 15. My daughter got expensive earbuds for Christmas, so did the student. In a different color, but the same model. We didn't owe her anything, but it was about inclusion, kindness, and decency. That girl wasn't even staying forever. Your stepdaughter is family. There was a right way to handle this. Equal effort, even if not equal gifts. But what did you do? You drew a hard line in front of a kid and said, "You're not one of us." You didn't just fail at step parenting. You failed at basic human empathy. YTA. Update. I want to clear something up first because people keep rewriting my marriage into something it wasn't. My relationship with my husband did not start as an affair. They were already divorced when we got together. There was no cheating, no overlap, no sneaking around. We loved each other, still do in theory, and I will not keep defending myself against something that simply didn't happen. That said, after everything that's happened recently, I am starting to believe he never fully emotionally separated from his ex. Not romantically, but through their daughter. He prioritizes her in a way that consistently sidelines me and my children. That's where the resentment comes from, even if people don't like hearing it. A few things have happened since my last post, and I'd like to share them. First, his daughter decided she didn't want to come over anymore. She blocked me, stopped answering my messages, and told her dad she didn't feel comfortable in our home. Instead of pushing back or trying to mediate, my husband supported her decision immediately. He said, "If she doesn't feel safe here emotionally, I'm not forcing her." That felt like a slap in the face. I wasn't abusive. I wasn't cruel to her directly. I set boundaries he didn't like. Then his ex got involved. She texted me a long message accusing me of excluding her daughter and damaging her mental health. I replied bluntly. I told her that her daughter has 2 parents, and I'm not one of them, and that she should stop expecting me to subsidize parenting decisions that aren't mine. I didn't insult her, but I didn't soften it either. Apparently, she shared that message with people. I don't know who exactly, but suddenly I was getting looks at school pickup. A couple of mums I usually talked to stopped engaging. One flat out ignored me. My husband told me I had embarrassed him and made things worse. I told him if the truth embarrasses him, that's not my fault. The vacation happened after a massive fight. I need to be clear about that. I didn't spring it on him casually. He knew about it. He just assumed his daughter would be included. When I told him she wasn't, he said he wouldn't go without her. I told him that was his choice. I wasn't canceling. So I went with my daughters and a close friend instead. The trip was honestly amazing. Peaceful. No tension. My girls were relaxed in a way I hadn't seen in a long time. That alone reinforced that I made the right decision. I paid for it. I planned it. I deserve to enjoy it. Yes, I make more money. A lot more. And I don't apologize for saying that when I'm the one funding most of our lifestyle. If finances are separate when it comes to his child, then they're separate when it comes to trips too. He should pay for his kid. I pay for mine. That is fair. What I do regret is venting in front of my daughters before the trip. I was angry and frustrated, and I said things about my stepdaughter and her mother that I shouldn't have said where my kids could hear. I didn't insult the girl directly, but I made it clear I didn't consider her part of my family unit. During one of the rare visits after the trip, my oldest repeated that sentiment. She told my stepdaughter she didn't belong in the house and should go back to her real home. My husband lost it. He blamed me entirely, saying I taught her that mindset. I told him kids repeat things without understanding the full context. That doesn't mean I endorse cruelty, but I'm not pretending I never said those things either. After that, everything changed. My husband became distant, not just with me, but with my daughters too. He stopped cooking dinner like he always did. Stopped helping with homework. Barely spoke at the table. I told him to stop acting passive-aggressive and be normal. I said whatever issues he had with me, he shouldn't take them out on the kids. He told me he was exhausted and didn't recognize himself in this house anymore. 2 days later, he packed a bag. He told my daughters goodbye. They cried. They begged him to stay. He hugged them, told them he loved them, and left anyway. That hurt more than I expected, and I'm not going to lie about that. But I also felt angry. You don't get to play the responsible adult and still walk out. I yelled that he was abandoning us. He didn't respond. I genuinely thought he was going to file for divorce. That's why I contacted a lawyer, not to start anything, but to understand my position. I wanted clarity around finances, the house, and legal responsibilities. I didn't hide that I spoke to a lawyer, and that made things worse. He said I was turning a family issue into a legal one. I said he already did when he chose his daughter over his marriage. Since then, he hasn't come home. He's still distant with my girls. He doesn't call them, doesn't check in. That bothers me more than anything else. People keep saying I'm heartless, but I'm watching 2 kids get emotionally sidelined, and no one seems to care because they're biologically mine. His daughter continues to avoid me completely. I removed myself as an emergency contact at her school because I don't want the liability or expectation anymore. That decision caused another blow-up because apparently she had an anxiety episode at school, and they couldn't reach anyone. Her mother was out of town. My husband blamed me for that too. I told him I was done playing a role I never agreed to. Now I'm sitting in limbo. I've had time to think. And yes, I regret how some things were handled. I regret saying certain things in front of my kids. I regret letting resentment build for years without forcing a real conversation earlier. What I don't regret is setting boundaries or refusing to be guilted into a role I don't want. I honestly thought my husband would grow a spine and stand with me as his wife. Instead, he chose distance, silence, and moral superiority. He keeps saying he needs space. I'm giving it to him. But I don't see how this gets fixed if he refuses to come back and talk like a rational adult. I'll update again once he's back home and ready to actually talk. Right now, I don't know what to do next, and I'm starting to regret getting myself into this situation at all. Comments. Comment 1. Jesus, you wanted a man with a daughter and thought you could just delete that part of his life like it's a damn filter on Instagram. You don't want a husband. You want a paycheck-earning sperm donor who shuts up while you run the show. You talk about your boundaries like they're some sacred thing, but really they're just your excuses for being a cold, controlling arsehole. You didn't set boundaries. You created a effing moat and dared anyone to try and cross it without a toll. Your husband didn't leave to be petty, he left because the house turned into an emotional freezer where no one but you got to feel safe. Don't be shocked when he doesn't come back. I wouldn't. Comment 2. You act like you're the only adult in a house full of irrational babies, but newsflash, you're just a control freak with a big paycheck. You didn't set boundaries. You set fire to every bridge and then blamed the smoke on everyone else. Let's break this down. You iced out a 14-year-old because she wasn't biologically yours. You talked trash about her mom, knowing your kids would hear. You planned a family vacation and then barred one member of the family from going. You removed yourself from her school contact during a crisis. And still you think your husband walking out was the betrayal? Girl, he left a sinking ship. You drilled holes into yourself. You didn't marry a man with a daughter. You tried to erase the part of him you didn't like. And now you're shocked he's finally pushing back. Rational? No. You're emotionally tone deaf. And the bill is coming due. Comment 3. I don't think you realize how close you are to becoming the cautionary tale in a custody battle. You've alienated your stepdaughter to the point of emotional no contact, pulled yourself off school records, and now your own kid is repeating your contempt out loud. Courts don't care that you make more money. They care about the environment in the home, and right now, yours looks toxic as hell. You keep saying you're rational, but you're emotionally reckless. You don't just set boundaries, you escalate. You escalated a Christmas gift gap into a permanent family fracture. A vacation disagreement turned into your husband walking out. A financial issue into a moral failure. You think he's weak because he walked away? No. He's strong because he finally stopped enabling cruelty and called it what it is. If you don't fix this fast, you won't just lose your marriage. You'll raise daughters who think emotional detachment is the standard for love. Update. So, I don't know if I'll be updating again after this, but here it is. Everything fell apart. The marriage, the family, the image I thought I had built. But I'm still standing, and life doesn't stop just because people failed to be who they were supposed to be. He came back, but not to talk. Not to fix anything. Not even to see the girls properly. He came back to pack more of his things. I thought maybe we'd sit down and work through it. I was ready to be civil. Instead, he barely spoke. He was cold. Methodical. He walked into our bedroom like a stranger, packed his clothes, grabbed some tools from the garage, and left again. My daughters cried again. They asked if he was staying this time. He said no, but that he still loved them. They clung to him, and he still left. I stood in the hallway and didn't say a word. What was I supposed to say? Please come back and keep pretending everything's fine. No. He made his choice. He walked out without even looking at me. I felt humiliated all over again, but more than that I felt done. A week later, my name started floating around in the school parent chat. Because of my stepdaughter. Turns out she told her school counselor everything, the gift disparity, the vacation, and what she overheard me say. I didn't even know how far it had gone until I was pulled into a meeting by the school counselor for my own kids. They said my daughters were being observed for social withdrawal and mentioned other parents had raised concerns about the environment at home. It gets worse. My now ex-Mill showed up to check on the girls one Friday. She said she wanted to take them for the weekend. I thought, fine, let me breathe. Let me think. Maybe get ahead of this mess. I didn't ask too many questions because honestly, I needed space. Turns out, She took them to his place. And yes, the stepdaughter was there. I don't even know if he's living with his ex or just staying over all the time. But clearly, there are no boundaries anymore. They played happy family while I sat in an empty house wondering how I got here. My girls didn't even tell me beforehand. I found out from a mutual friend who saw them out together. Then the legal part started. He filed for divorce within 2 weeks. I found out from the process server, not from him. He cited irreconcilable differences and emotional incompatibility. I won't lie, my first reaction was rage. I sent texts. Angry, bitter, accusatory texts. I said things I shouldn't have. I told him he was a coward. I said I hoped he enjoyed being back with his ex, because it looked like that's where he belonged all along. I even threw out the word cheating, not because I had proof, but because it felt like betrayal. My lawyer later told me I needed to stop. He said my messages were mean-spirited and could backfire legally. He was right. I didn't stop because I wanted to destroy anyone. I was just heartbroken. I don't use that word easily, but that's what it was. A full collapse of everything I thought I had built. And still no one cared how it affected me. During all this, my daughters started asking to stay with him more. It wasn't even a fight. They just stopped coming home on certain weekends. Then weekdays. So I transferred them to a new school. Not a boarding school, just a different district, away from the fallout. I see them maybe once a week. Sometimes not at all. I go to their new school now and then. One time I caught my oldest during dismissal. She barely looked at me. I tried to talk. She said she was tired and didn't want to go anywhere. She didn't even hug me. That's what this has come to. They're not adapting well to the new school either. At least, not yet. But I know they'll learn to. They're young. They'll adjust, especially if their father's side is so determined to paint me as the worst mom on the planet. It's fine. I'll rebuild from here. I don't know what he's doing now. I heard he and his ex might have been talking even before we split. Emotional affair, maybe. I don't care anymore. I wasted too much time trying to prove I was right, that I wasn't the one who broke this. I've stopped defending myself. People believe what they want to believe. They needed a bad guy, and I was convenient. The divorce is finalized. I kept the house, for what it's worth. It's quiet now, empty, honestly. But I've found a kind of peace in that. There are no more fights. No more back and forth over whose kid matters more. No more crying daughters asking why he's leaving again. It's over. I'm rebuilding. Slowly. I've reconnected with some old friends I had let go of during the marriage. I'm focusing on work again. I've even started seeing someone, nothing serious, but he's kind, quiet, respectful, doesn't raise his voice. No kids, that's intentional. I'm not saying everything's okay, but I'm not spiraling through someone else's emotional chaos anymore. I regret some of the things I said. I regret letting resentment rule the way I handled things. But I don't regret holding the line. I wasn't going to sacrifice my own children's joy to chase someone else's definition of family. I'll always believe that if he'd chosen to work with me instead of around me, things could have been different. But he didn't. He gave up. So now, I'm moving on. I don't know if I'll write again. Maybe in 6 months, maybe never. I just wanted to leave this here in case anyone's still reading. I lost a lot. But I'm still here. And I will get my daughters back in time. Once I'm back on track financially, emotionally, they'll see who really stood firm when everything fell apart. Life moves on. And so am I. Comments. Comment 1. Honestly, F you from the bottom of my heart. I don't think I've ever hated reading someone's story more than yours. The way you talk about kids like their possession, like they have to earn their place, is sickening. I don't believe for a second this isn't a boarding school. You sent them away the moment their presence started reminding you of your failures. You say you'll get them back once you're stable. Get real. Your stepdaughter survived you. I genuinely hope your daughters do too. Because if there's one thing that's clear in every word you write, it's that no one in your life feels safe unless they're useful to you. You are not a victim. You're the problem, and the fact that you still don't see it is terrifying. Comment 2. You want to know what the real gut punch in your post is? It's when you described seeing your daughter at her new school, and she barely looked at you. That's the moment right there. The proof. You weren't just a stepmom with boundaries. You weren't just a rational adult. You were cold, repetitive, dismissive. And now the people you love the most don't feel safe around you. You didn't lose your family because your husband was weak or your mill was meddling. You lost them because you showed them over and over that your version of love comes with terms and conditions. Comment 3. You changed your daughter's school because people were finally calling you out. Not because of bullying or danger, because you couldn't stand the shame. So now your kids get yanked away from their friends and support system just to protect your reputation. What happens when the new school finds out why they switched? What happens when the rumors follow you? Because they will. You built a toxic narrative, and now you're running from the consequences like a damn coward. You think this is you regaining control, but it's just a new form of punishment for them, not you. Your stepdaughter escaped you, and it shows. Deep down, you know it. Your girls are next, and the worst part is, you'll blame them when it happens. You didn't lose your family. You pushed them out the door, and then locked it behind them. Second story. Wife of 16 years betrayed me for a new guy, refused to accept it, and tried to ruin my life, finances, and relationship with my kids. But I was prepared. I am writing this because I'm struggling with how everything went down and need a sanity check. Background. My wife 43F and I 43M were married for 16 years. Unfortunately, we grew apart. I was not blameless in that. It took two to get us into the position we were in. We were great with our kids 10, 13, but had fallen into a pattern of trading off parenting duties rather than parenting together. I switched to a job a few years ago that allowed me to work from home 2-3 days a week, and this seemed to make things worse. It was like we were separated but living in the same house. I tried to repair our marriage, but she seemed increasingly resentful of the time I tried to spend with her. It normally ended in her yelling at me and storming off. I admit, I may be a lot to deal with. I am not confrontational and normally shut down and try to ignore her when she does this. I know that this is a bad way of dealing with it, and I am working on this. I was very, very depressed, but trying to work through it. Towards mid-December, she started taking late-night walks after we put the kids to bed. I tried to give her space for her time and even offered to join her, but she preferred to go alone. I usually stayed up for her, frustrated or worried. I even bought her protective lights to keep her safe, as the roads in our area do not have lights or sidewalks. The event. Fast forward to January 5th. She left at about 11 p.m. It was 28 degrees outside. By 2:26 am, she still wasn't back. I texted asking if she was still walking, no response for 10 minutes. I called. It rang once, then voicemail. So, I did something butthole why. I used the Find My Phone feature. I had never done this before, and I know it was an invasion of privacy. But a 4-hour walk in freezing weather until 3 am felt completely abnormal. I was worried for her, but honestly I was also frustrated and angry. I thought I could drive to her and bring her home. However, the location confused me. It showed her at a house in our neighborhood. Within a minute of me checking, two things happened. She texted me saying she was almost home. When I refreshed the map, her location services were turned off. When she returned, I asked her where she was, and she said, out walking. I confronted her with the screenshot. She claimed she may have walked down that street, which is a 30-minute walk from our house, but couldn't say for sure. She insisted she was not in any house, and the map must have locked on to that location. I felt used and lied to. I slept on the couch, asking for advice. She continued to deny everything, saying the phone was not accurate. She was my wife, and I wanted to believe her, but I needed advice. So, I turned to the best source of wisdom, Reddit, and the comments were brutal, but helpful. I took another look at the location data and realized two things. I had been to the house before. It was saved in my phone as the home of one of my daughter's friends who lived with her single dad. It showed that she was logged into his Wi-Fi. The next night, as she was getting ready for a walk, I confronted her again. I told her I knew who she was with and about the Wi-Fi. She finally admitted she was at the house, but claimed they were just friends, and she needed someone to talk to. We live a 20-minute drive from her sister, mother, and other friends, but she claimed she saw his light on while walking and decided to hang out. At this point, I was very angry and told her we were done. The next weekend. Throughout the week things were very tense. She accused me of not trusting her, trying to control her, and not letting her have friends. 6 days later, on Saturday, she left early to go shopping. I took the kids and the dog for a walk at a local park. After about a mile, we looked ahead and saw a family approaching us. It was my wife, walking with this guy and his kid, holding the guy's hand. She wasn't wearing her glasses, so we got fairly close before she noticed. When she spotted us, she actually ducked behind him and turned around to walk in the other direction. I did the same so we wouldn't make a scene. My kids asked why we were walking away from mommy, and I just told them we would ask her later. She came home hours later, furious at me for being at that park. Her car was not in the car park, so how was I supposed to know? She yelled at me and then lied to the kids, telling them she just bumped into him and didn't see us. The end. I was done. I decided I could not trust anything she said and told her I was applying for a divorce. I know I could have tried to work through it, but honestly, why? I was always the repairer of our relationship, and I just could not let this go. She called me every name she could think of. She said I was controlling. I don't think I am. Accused me of cheating when I worked long hours I didn't. And accused me of watching spicy videos. I plead the fifth. I did slow walk the divorce for months, hoping she would propose counseling or try to make amends. But she did nothing. I am not the good guy in this. I did invade her privacy by tracking her phone. I did choose to file for divorce, rather than to continue to try to make things work. I could have worked harder and insisted on counseling before we split. We do have kids, and I have heard of people putting up with each other until the kids leave the house. But that would have been another 8 years. So, Ada for divorcing my wife after finding her late-night walks had a specific destination. Comments. Comment 1. NTA, she cheated on you and lied to you about it. Then she tried to blame you and has obviously made you feel like the bad guy. If she is unwilling to admit fault and hasn't asked you to try therapy with her, you can't really continue to stay married. I'm sorry this happened to you and your children. Based on what you wrote, you did nothing wrong. If my husband was unreachable after midnight, and I had the option to search his location, I absolutely would because I would be worried about his safety. She could have been injured. If she wasn't doing something wrong, she would have been apologizing for making you worry. Don't let her turn her own guilt back on you. Comment 2. NTA. I am not the good guy in this. I did invade her privacy by tracking her phone. I did choose to file for divorce, rather than to continue to try to make things work. I could have worked harder and insisted on counseling before we split. This is not your fault at all. She cheated on you. She continued to lie when you showed her evidence that she was there. She lied and said they were just friends. She lied and said she was going shopping, but she was on a date with him and his family. She could have stopped and said you both should try to work things out, but she didn't. She's saying you are controlling and all that, but it's all lies to make you feel like the bad guy. Don't give in to that. She is a liar and cheater. You tracked her phone for good reason. You chose to file for divorce because the marriage was over at that point. She ended it. In my mind, once a partner cheats, the relationship is over. They chose that. For you to feel like you have to try and fix things is laughable. Comment 3. You cannot possibly believe that finding the location of your wife when she has been out walking in the freezing deadly cold for 4 hours in the middle of the night and isn't answering text or calls is in any way an invasion of privacy. Beyond the fact that her silence was because she is a cheater, you had every right and duty to check on her safety. What if she had tripped and was dying from hypothermia in a ditch somewhere? Complete nonsense to parse this as an invasion of privacy. Why? When she's at a single man's house in the middle of the night, a single man friend, she's hidden from you. Would she not just answer your text or call? Because she was too busy at 3 a.m. to be bothered by that. Then she turned off her location. Set yourself free. I hope you have a really good lawyer. Update me. Update. Thank you to everyone for all of the comments. I am amazed at the number of responses. I tried to read through all of the comments and really appreciate your words. I wanted to start by addressing some of them, and then provide an update. Comment. Why did you put up with this for a year? The original post is from a year ago. How did the same thing happen twice? No, this did not happen twice to me. Once was enough. This happened in January 2025. I asked for a divorce about a week afterwards. I am just getting to posting this now, December 2025. Comment. Why didn't you confront the guy? Okay, if you mean physically confront him, no. Honestly, I do not blame him. He did not tempt her or trick her, and had no promise to me apart from common decency. If my ex could convince me that this was made up, then I have no idea what she told him. Comment. This is obvious. What kind of a are you? You should have seen this. Yes, I agree. In hindsight, it is obvious. But when you are in a relationship for 16 years, you really, really trust the other person, or at least think you do. I really had no proof that she was cheating apart from these events. The change in the relationship was gradual, but at the end I found myself friendless and isolated, with really only one source of truth, who was telling me that I was crazy. I still loved her, and she was still telling me that she loved me. To me that meant something. Finally, I have heard that people repair relationships with counseling, even after cheating or stay together because of the kids. But there were signs. Oh, there were signs. One of my biggest fights with the ex was before Christmas. We were decorating the house with the kids and some of their friends, including the guy's daughter. My ex was not helping. I think she was decorating another part of the house. So I left the last of the tree decorations for us to do together and told her so. I went upstairs to put away some laundry. And when I came down, the last of the decorations were on the tree. And another guy, the same guy, was putting the star on the top of the tree, my tree, with a big grin on his face. I was so angry, but I did not want to yell in front of the kids. When I confronted her later, she said that it was not a big deal. I was being weird, I was not there, and anyway, he is taller, and so it is easier for him. So for an update. It is now December the following year, and the documents are signed. I will be divorced in a few weeks. The process was horribly painful, but I am happier than I have been in years. It was tough at first. I made the decision to cut off all of our joint friends. I did not want them to take sides, though this was probably unhealthy. Since I do not have family in the country, I was alone, feeling like a failure and a reject. I was spiraling fast. Fortunately, I did get help in time and found a wonderful therapist who helped me and does not take any bull poop. The divorce took a long time. My ex had knee surgery in Feb, and I took care of her as best I could. I was trying to still be a good husband and figure things out, but things became worse and worse. I did still love her, but my ex made no attempt at reconciliation in months. Finally, my therapist told me, "She does not want you anymore, leave her alone," and it finally sank in that we were done. My therapist encouraged me to start taking notes every time I spoke to my ex, and showed me how to set boundaries in communicating only via text or email. This drove my ex crazy, but ended all of the confusion about what was said in the past. My ex still refuses to use a shared parenting schedule, which has caused no end of trouble, but we have a system documented in our divorce doc. I tried to make the divorce as simple as possible with my ex, but it did not work. We went through 2 mediation services. She walked away from both until I finally lawyered up. She tried to give me visitation rights instead of joint custody of our kids. She refused to pay any bills while living in the house, except for some groceries. She tried to trick me into giving her the house and paying off the remaining mortgage. She agreed to take half of our pets, but ended up abandoning them in the house I kept them. She refused to pay any of our shared debt. She finally moved out and, among other things, took every stitch of clothes for the kids, leaving me with nothing. My worst experience was with the sale of the house. It was truly the closing from hell. I attended the closing while my ex was vacationing with her family. We had discussed the proceeds being split 50/50ths, but when I saw the documents she had sent to the closing agent, I was shocked to see that she had requested that 100% of the funds be sent to her account. I called her, and she was furious that I disturbed her on the beach and told me to just sign it. What followed was 3 hours of me calling her, the escrow agent calling her, and our realtor calling her, while we tried to keep the buyers in the room. All she had to do was send an email from her phone with the updated instructions. I had to choose between trying to claw the money back later or walking away from the sale. Finally, my lawyers spoke to her lawyers with the intent of suing her for any future closing costs and decrease in sale price of the home. She relented, and we were able to sell the house. As I said, it is now December, and the divorce is almost final. I am happy and comfortable with my menagerie of pets, who are a lot to manage, but I love dearly, especially my wonderful, opinionated husky. I have a great relationship with my kids. With the advice of his therapist, I told my son 14 what happened. We had some difficult conversations, but it brought us closer. I decided not to try to reconnect with my old friends. One tried to yell at me in front of my own kids, and others helped my ex move. I have no idea what my ex has been telling them, but only one reached out to ask how I was doing. Bizarrely enough, I will miss my mother-in-law, who was a dear lady and a gem. I now have a great group of friends that match my weird energy. It might surprise people, but after over 9 months of denial and telling me I am crazy, my ex and this guy are officially together. I wish him the best of luck. As for me, I wanted to wait until the papers were signed before I asked anyone out, and I have a date this weekend with someone very nice. My first date in 16 years. It's been a hell of a year, but I think I'm finally ready for my second act. Comments. Comment 1. You were gaslit, isolated, and made to doubt your reality for a long time, and yet you still acted with empathy and integrity far longer than most people could. The way you handled the divorce. especially protecting your kids and setting boundaries, shows real strength. It's not easy to walk away after 16 years, but it's clear you chose self-respect and long-term peace over prolonged pain. Comment 2. I'm divorced from a cheating spouse as well. I'm happier than I have ever been, and my kids and I have a great relationship, and they have not been in contact with my ex for almost 20 years and have never met my many grandchildren. The best thing to come from this will be your children, knowing that they should never stay in a relationship with someone who disrespects them. That is a great life lesson to teach children. As they grow, in an age-appropriate way, let them know their mother chose to step out of your marriage, and that they should never ever accept that treatment for themselves, because they are deserving of the love and respect of a partner, as are you. And they should never spend time with someone they cannot trust. Comment 3. Good for you, hun, for moving on and getting to the greener pastures. You've gone through a lot, and it sounds like you were in an abusive relationship for 16 years. But you made it through, and that's what matters. It seems you've managed to get a good support system. It seems your kids are adjusting well, and you have fur babies, and fur babies make everything better. Honestly, I pity everyone else who is still in your ex's life, because she's just mooching off of them like she did with you. But as long as they don't make that your problem or your kid's problem, it really doesn't matter what happens to them. They're out of your story, and you're all the better for it. Thank you for watching the video. If you are interested in listening to these kinds of stories, we've got more in store for you. Simply subscribe to our channel, hit the like button, and share it with your friends.